The next topic will be from Professor Eduardo Pecastori. The topic is predictor of sperm retrieval in NOA, a critical review of the evidence.
Thank you, Selain, for finishing your talk 5 minutes before. Thank you. You made up the difference.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's kind of a task to have a last talk before lunch, so I hope that some of you will be still awake at this time. I'm really thankful to Professor Kwang for the nice invitation and the very nice welcoming, and also for the effort that has been done to put these sessions together with also simultaneous translation. I would like to develop this talk according to the suggestion of Professor Nguyen, the hospital director, that this morning said that we should be as much as possible clinical in talking about what in our lectures. I will address the predictors of sperm retrieval in non-obstructive azoospermia, but I would like to do this in a sort of an office visit perspective, so to be as much clinical as possible. And that's is what I mean by this. First of all, you are clinicians, you see patients in your room, and according to the flow of evaluating the patient, what are the informations you can get in terms of predictors? So after the office visit, of course, you run some lab tests, some genetic tests, and you can get also information of some other specific clinical conditions. Once you do that, you go ahead with surgery, and basically, I think that, okay, I hope this is, okay, correct. And intraoperatively, you can have some clues of what will be the histology according to the what you see under the microscope. And finally, if I have time, I will just run a quick through about a glimpse on the future to see what the future could hold for us. Of course, no one of us knows, but we can just have some guess. So let's start from the clinical evaluation of the patient. The patient enters. First thing that you just see without asking how old is he. Does age have an importance for us? Well, it has in Klinefelter patients, because we have data that say that in these patients, sperm retrieval may be affected by the age. The younger the patient, the more chances you have to find the sperm in these patients. Then, after you see the patient, you run a medical history, and you might see some information about former surgeries and former histologies. In the case that you have some information, that it is definitely of use because there is a great consensus about the relation between histopathological categories and the possible outcome. In fact, Sertoli cell-only syndrome has the lowest probability of sperm retrieval. Hypospermatogenesis has the best chances of retrieval. Late maturation arrest has a better prognosis than early maturation arrest. Point is that testis histology, in most of the cases, you have only after the surgery. You cannot get it up front of surgery because it's actually not ethical to be invasive in the testis if you don't have the possibility to retrieve sperm and freeze sperm. So in fact, this is something that you have only afterwards. There is also a colleague of us, Russo, that by the way is a member of GEF, that with colleagues put together that data about histology and preoperative data and came up with recently, you see that is 2005, with a nomogram about possibility to retrieve sperms. But again, two concerns. The first is that, as we just said, histology you have usually in most of cases after you do surgery. The second concern is that you see that you have a sensitivity and specificity that is not 100%. So what would you do? Would you deny the possibility of sperm retrieval? Also, if you have some possibilities, in these cases, I wouldn't. I would say the patient that you have maybe low chances, but it's still worth it to give it a try. Anyhow, this is his nomogram. You can find it in his paper. What is nice to know is in the cases, as Selahattin already mentioned, of redo surgery. Maybe you get a case of a patient that did some elsewhere a TISI, and they did not find sperm, but hopefully he did histology, and then you have a report, and that it's nice to have, because as we said, you can tell the patient according to the histology if he has low or high chances to sperm retrieval with a new surgery. And of course, for example, you could have SCOS that instead of be Sertoli cell-only syndrome could be just a partial Sertoli-only syndromes, because you know that with microTESE you just explore different sites, so you can convert a diagnosis absolute in a relative diagnosis of SCOS. Then you visit the patient after you ask the reports. Of course, you visit and you see the volume of the testis. And this could theoretically give you some hints, because the volume of the testis is given mostly by the seminiferous tubules. So this parameter, the volume, has been correlated to spermatogenesis. But this is true in principle, but not in absolute, in terms that, for example, you can have people with azoospermic, with normal testis volume, but, for example, with early maturation arrest, that is the worst chances of sperm retrieval. In these cases, the paradigm is not true. And there are also reports that you can get sperms also in testis with a very slow volume, lower than 2 milliliters. So again, the paradigm in this case is not true. Anyhow, if you, at your visit, you find small and firm testis, this could be almost pathognomonic of a diagnosis of Klinefelter, and you know that in Klinefelter it's not so easy to find sperms, but is anyhow something that you can tell right away when you visit the patient. You visit the patient, that is an azoospermic patient, and you find out that he has also a varicocele that is found, in fact, in 5–10% of men with non-obstructive azoospermia. What should you do? Should you consider to fix the varicocele? It has been proposed to be beneficial, but in terms of warranting some better outcomes in terms of sperm retrieval, but there are really conflicting results. Probably the best chances that you have is when you have hypospermatogenesis. In these cases, varicocele can help out before surgery. But anyhow, there is a need of well-designed randomized clinical trials in order to answer this question. I'll move on. You see the patient, you concluded your visit, and you start to prescribe tests. The first thing that you do, of course, are hormonal levels, and we know that the points are FSH and testosterone. Let's talk about, let's start with FSH. FSH of course, you would again logically expect that the higher the FSH, the lower chances you have to find sperms. Is that true? Is this a true paradigm? Well, let's see. First of all, we have cases, again, of early maturation arrest that may have a low normal serum FSH, but they have the worst chances of sperm retrieval. And this absolutely makes sense because FSH works in the first stages of spermatogenesis, and in these cases, the first cases of spermatogenesis are fine. The point is that it stops there. There's an early maturation arrest. So you have normal FSH, but then people are azoospermic. And it has been shown that, in fact, there is a poor predictive ability. Ramazani also arrived to state that there is a counterintuitive demonstration that higher FSH level are associated with greater chances of sperm retrieval. What about testosterone? We already heard in previous presentations, so I will skip some times on this, and I will just reassess the concept that has been already stated, that well, first of all, Klinefelter patients, you know that testosterone, those that have a higher baseline testosterone levels have a higher probability of successful sperm retrieval. This is an information that testosterone gives to us. But besides this, the new issue is the issue of intratesticular testosterone measurement, as also Germar anticipated us. And there is the possibility to use a proxy for the levels of intratesticular testosterone that is given by 17-hydroxyprogesterone. This is a new thing that people are working on to see if, in fact, the levels of 17-hydroxyprogesterone can correlate with the possibility to find sperm in these cases. Of course, these studies are going on. We don't have already results, but it's a thing that we need to see and to follow over time. Then you run the exams, but of course, if you have azoospermic patients, you also run genetic tests. The first is karyotype, and again comes out Klinefelter. And of course, we know that there are in the literature these data of 38 to 52% sperm retrieval rate. But besides the data, the clinical experience of who works in the field is that, and I would like to know also Selahattin comment on this, it's very, very hard to find sperm in these patients. And we already know in this presentation, anyhow, that there are two clues that further can help out to predict if we can find sperm. That is the testosterone levels, higher baseline testosterone levels may help, and age of surgery. The younger patient is, the best chances you may have. What about Y chromosome microdeletions? Also, this has already been said, so I will go fast through this. We know that these are the classic deletions as ZF C, A, and B plus C. This is in order of frequency. Well, we know that deletions A and B are not compatible with sperm retrieval. But as it has been said also by Satilko in his answer, in his reply to a question, if we have an atypical AZFB or AZFBC deletions, there is the possibility to find some sperms. Chances are low, but there are. So there is a need for the deletion extension analysis in order to define this. And instead, with ZF-C deletions, we may also find sperm in the ejaculate, but definitely we have realistic expectations of finding sperm with sperm retrieval surgery. We can also know, run out in our clinical history on conditions that would allow anyhow to find the sperm. These are cryptorchidism, orchitis, and post-chemotherapy for testis cancer. These people shouldn't be denied the possibility to have an attempt of sperm retrieval because they have chances to find sperm, although there is no consensus of what are the specific predictive factors. Now, we have done our office evaluation and our tests. We are taking the patient to surgery, and the surgery should be microthese, as we said, we heard from Selahattin Kajan, because microthese is the technique that allows the highest possibility to sperm retrieval compared to these, and at the same time allows us to take away the least possible amount of tissue, and this is good for also the androgenic production of the testes. And we know that the result of microthese result relies on the possibility to find dilated tubules. And during surgery, we can see some patterns that can anticipate what we can find. If we find seminiferous tubules with homogeneous and thin caliber, this could be an early maturation arrest that we already heard in this talk that have a low probability of sperm retrieval. Of note, these are testes that, as we said, with the normal volume that maybe would suggest to us that there are good chances, but in fact, the chances are low with this kind of histology. Or we also find no dilated seminiferous tubules, and we could be also in the situation of a Sertoli cell-only syndrome condition. While if we find few dilated seminiferous tubules surrounded by not dilated tubules, you see here very thin tubules, and here more dilated tubules, this could be a situation of high spermatogenesis that has the best chances to find sperm. The conclusions of what we have, the point where we have right now, without looking at the future, is that at present, no patient with non-obstructive azoospermia should be denied the possibility of a microthese based on the candidate predictors of sperm retrieval, because they can have always some chances. There is no an absolute, actually there is an absolute contraindication that is complete ZF-A and B microdeletions. Out of this, we don't have absolute predictors that deny the possibility of finding sperm. I will just now quickly on what I call the glimpse of a possible future. We have cell-free nucleic acids that may be a predictive biomarker for the success of sperm retrieval because they are particularly elevated in cases of azoospermia. We can have transcriptomics that are genes expressed during meiosis, and you see here a list of these genes. You can have proteomics that are proteins in the seminal plasma that correlate with sperm health and spermatogenesis, and you see here many of these. So the hope for the future is that with artificial intelligence that could integrate this multiomics with clinical and genetics features, this might improve the selection of best candidates for sperm retrieval among patients with non-obstructive azoospermia. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Pescatori.